Guys, welcome back to the Unfiltered Political Lens. Tonight, I want to take a step back from the headlines and the emotions surrounding one of the most closely watched criminal cases in America. The death of Charlie Kirk shocked millions of people, regardless of their political beliefs. And now the preliminary hearing has offered the public its first substantial look at the prosecution's evidence. But before we dive into that, what has been presented in court, it's important to remember what a preliminary hearing actually is. It is not a trial, and it is not a verdict, and it is not a determination of guilt. Its purpose is much narrower: to decide whether prosecutors have presented enough evidence for the case to move forward at trial. That distinction matters because our justice system depends on the differences between allegations and proof beyond a reasonable doubt. In an age where information spreads in seconds and opinions spread even faster, slowing down may be the most difficult and most necessary thing we can do. Over the course of the hearing, prosecutors have presented surveillance video, forensic evidence, witness testimony, digital communications, and a recorded interview with Lance Twiggs, the defendant's former roommate and romantic partner that had testified under an immunity agreement. According to the testimony and evidence presented in court, the prosecutors argued that the surveillance footage places the defendant near the scene and that additional forensic evidence links him to the items recovered during the investigation. They also presented communications, and they contend show planning, motive, and admission after the shooting had occurred. The prosecutors seeking the death penalty and argue that the evidence demonstrates the case should proceed to trial. The defense, however, has challenged the significant portions of that presentation. The defense attorneys have questioned the reliability and interpretations of certain forensic evidence and have argued that alternative investigative leads were not fully explored, objected to the portions of recorded interviews and digital evidence. The court has also limited or redacted some material to protect the fairness of the future proceedings. None of these disputes have determined guilt or innocence. They are part of the adversarial process designed to test evidence before a jury ever hears the case. Perhaps the most important lessons from these proceedings has very little to do with politics. It is about the philosophy of justice itself. Justice has never been designed to satisfy our desires for immediate answers. It is intentionally slow because history has repeatedly shown that speed and certainty are often enemies of fairness. Every constitutional protection afforded to one defendant ultimately protects every citizen. And if we abandon those principles because a case is emotional or it's politically significant, we weaken the same system that protects the innocent. Charlie Kirk was one of the most recognizable conservative political voices in America. His speeches inspired supporters while provoking strong criticism from opponents. And that reality has made this case about more than a homicide investigation. It has become a national conversation about political violence, free speech, and the increasingly fragile nature of civil disagreement. Whatever anyone thought about Charlie Kirk, ideas, disagreement, and a constitutional republic is meant to be answered with debate, not violence. History reminds us that democratic societies become unstable when the political opponents stop viewing one another as fellow citizens and instead begin viewing one another as enemies. The transformation rarely happens overnight. It begins with the contempt, and then the contempt grows through dehumanization and eventually convinces some people that violence is justified in pursuit of a political goal. The courtroom cannot solve that cultural problem, but it can demonstrate something equally important: that even in the most emotionally charged cases, evidence, not public opinion, must guide the legal process. One of the most striking aspects of this case has been the intense public interest. Members of the public have camped outside the courthouse to obtain one of the limited seats available, reflecting deeply this case has captured national attention. That level of interest also increases the importance of careful reporting and restraint. because every new piece of evidence presented in court exists with a legal process that has not yet reached its conclusion. The internet has also played its familiar role. Since the day of the shooting, countless theories, rumors, edited clips, and partisan narratives have circulated online. Some have been contradicted by evidence presented in court, while others remain unsupported. And this reminds us of an uncomfortable reality. The speed of modern communications even exceeds the speed of truth. The facts emerge gradually through investigation, testimony, cross-examination, and judicial review. Social media rewards the certainty, but the justice system requires patience. As this case moves forward, more evidence may emerge, and more witnesses may testify, and more legal questions will be answered. A judge will determine whether the prosecution has established probable cause for the case to proceed, but any ultimate determination of guilt or innocence belongs to a jury, applying the constitutional standards of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. That distinction is not a technicality. It is one of the foundations of the American legal system. Whether you supported Charlie Kirk, disagreed with him, or never followed his work at all, this case asks every American the same question. Do we still believe that truth is discovered through evidence rather than assumption? Can we allow our legal institutions to do their work before reaching conclusions? And can we defend due process even when emotions urge us to move faster? Those questions extend far beyond this courtroom. They speak to the future of our civic culture. Democracies do not survive because the citizens always agree. They survive because citizens accept the rules that protect everyone's rights, even the most difficult cases. The measure of a constitutional republic is not how it handles easy cases. It is how faithfully it applies its principles when emotions are at their highest. I want to thank you for tuning into the Unfiltered Political Lens. And if you appreciated thoughtful discussions grounded in publicly available evidence rather than speculation, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who values reasoned conversation. As this case continues, we'll keep following the verified developments while respecting the legal process that exists to pursue truth through evidence. Until next time, stay informed, think critically, and remember, justice is strongest when it's patient, enough to let the facts lead the way. And as always, we'll see you in the next one. Peace. Thanks for watching.